have an opportunity to know who their neighbors are. And Ben, I think you're doing great things in the neighborhood. I also would like to encourage you, the kids that you have already gathered up within your neighborhood, to some of that energies that they have for picking up cans, if you can encourage them to read more, and if you have any time to promote them in education.
Well, I would like to see other adults getting involved in this, and there are some, but it requires a lot of people to get involved. When I grew up in that neighborhood, there were at least a half a dozen people involved, and now there's not some blocks there are no people involved.
And when we have more people, then you can imagine that's at home every day, and could, if they only would, if they just spend 2 hours a day trying to help some child or another, it would make a difference in their academic achievements. And tonight I'm encouraging that those that do not have anything to do during the day, if they just take 2 hours away from their television program and come down to the center, 3933 West Center Street, and volunteer to try to help some of our youth to read arithmetic, and just counsel with some of them. I'm going to take a station break. We'll be right back.
Okay, good. The young man get home last night?
We're back. I would like to thank Bob, Linda, and Ben for being our guests tonight, and I hope that you all will be our guests again in the future. Thank you very much. And Mr. Bob,
Well, it's really been a pleasure, meeting Linda, and of course Ben and I have worked on another matter. I ran for the school board, and Ben was one of my volunteers on my school board committee. But I could get a sense then that here was a person that was really concerned about community in the Sherman Park area. And I think that we have all of those things, that we can do in our own immediate neighborhoods.
Okay. That's enough for tonight. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Avis Wright, a community activist, a voice for the young, the old, the sick, the handicapped, and the homeless, now has her own TV show. Avis Wright talks with the politicians, the educators, the business, and the religious leaders. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. on TV 65, your community-minded station, Milwaukee.
The Loft Furniture offers
a job that was started last Friday and finished on Saturday. And this is the outside window of the window that was redone. I was under the impression when we talked about this when we let the contract, that this would be a new window, in and out, a frame and everything that would be put in there and then built up. Well, obviously it's not new, it's used. It's just a cheap old window that he probably got for $1.50 and threw in there, and it's not finished. You notice it's been done for a week now, and nothing's been done to it for a week, because I only kicked him off the job site yesterday. And he was supposed to come back on Sunday. He didn't come back Sunday. He didn't come Monday. The worker first showed up on Tuesday, so it's quite obvious that he wasn't intending to do anything. And there's a piece of molding on this end. It's not even flush. It's out at the bottom to hide the space in there. And that, of course, could be hidden. It could be built as part of the frame, but that wasn't done either. And you notice the 4 screws. That's to hold it in place. There's nothing else. In other words, it's not held in place by those 2 from the old window, the 2, whatever they're called, the butterfly clips or whatever on the edge. It's held in place by 4 Phillips screws, and they're not even. The 2 in the top are okay. They're in the old holes for the old frame, but the ones in the bottom, one's higher than the other one, so it's not symmetrical. That's not quality workmanship. And of course, there's putty missing in that window, so the window itself is not even has not been reconditioned, has not been done in a finish carpentry or finish type of mode to put up there. This is the window, of course, that used to have a stained glass window like most of the other houses around here. That was sold a long time ago. When they replaced it with a crummy job. It looked real bad on the inside. Mr. White decided to redo this. So he was going to redo a crummy job with another crummy job.
Start over again.
Okay.
Okay.
Now this is the part of the refinishing work that was begun 12 days ago from today, 11 days ago from yesterday. It was begun on Monday, the 30th of April. That was 4 days after this contract was signed. The contract had a few days. That was going to be a matter of days to get done, and it still hadn't been done. You notice the molding. This molding had been painted last Saturday by the painting contractor that I had come in and paid $100 to paint all of the wood trim, the doors, the windows, and the molding, kick molding. And you notice it is damaged. It's been damaged from the hand sander. There are grooves at each of these spots. This is not dust. And here it's 1/4 of an inch. A groove has been cut in by, I don't know what sander, how that did that, because I couldn't even duplicate that with the floor sander or the hand sander that I rented today. And now most of the sanding, he did most of the sanding, I did the finish. I filled in the cracks with wood putty and then finished the sanding today in 3 hours. It cost $5 to rent the edger, which he refused to rent. And it cost $20 a day, or a half day, 4 hours to rent the floor sander, which I did I used one sheet. One sheet cost $1.99, but he refused to even do that. So he was spending 11 days doing this $240 part of a $1,050 contract, and still wasn't getting done. Yesterday, when I kicked him off the job site, he would refuse to tell me when he was going to be done. And they were still working, still sanding by hand. He had a block, which I have the material in a bag downstairs that I swept up after the job site. That's usually a grill block. It's used to clean cooking grills in restaurants to get the fried on meat, hamburger, bacon, and whatever, off of grills. They were using that to clean the edges of this, and that's ridiculous. It would take another week to do that. So I kicked him off after he refused to give me a finish date, and then I rented the stuff and finished it. Now you notice I still have yet to finish these parts. I have to do the corners yet, but that'll be with a little hand sander or a block and some sandpaper, but that's relatively minor. And the other thing that the process they were doing is that because they refused to rent the right equipment, the equipment they had no dust catchers. So therefore, they were raising dust throughout the house. Dust was coming up all over the place, going throughout wherever anything was open, which means we couldn't paint. We couldn't do anything in the rest of the house because we had to continually be cleaning stuff up because of the dusting every day for 11 days. This is ongoing, this dust being raised for an hour a day, and then they'd quit and go somewhere. So this is pretty much the same as the other room, except this was easier to do. The other room had glue on the wood surface that they had to get off first, and that took a long time because they didn't know how to do it. He obviously hadn't done this before, although he said it was no problem when we let the contract. And so this room was fairly easy. I filled in the wood cracks this morning and with wood putty, and then sanded and smoothed that all out with the floor sander, and then also the edger. The edger, what you do is just take the edger and go up and get the dark spots. And so I did that throughout, which it only took me 3 hours to do it, although it was 3 hours of intensive work. And I didn't do a quality job because it takes more time to do that. But if they would have done it, if they would have rented the right equipment and done it, they could have done this in at the very most, including painting and varnishing, 3 days. And that would only be because they did a very quality job, took their time, and did it all right. Now, if they would have done it fast and sloppy the way they were doing it, they could have done it in one day. And now in here, one of the other reasons I kicked him off the job site was because he was arguing about that there was no requirement to fill any of the cracks, that you just don't fill tongue and groove boards, that they don't need filler, and obviously I told him I could stick my little finger in some of the cracks, and he said, "What little cracks?" So, I mean, we talked about this when we let the contract, and I told him that I wanted to put it in writing. He said, "Oh no, you don't put that stuff in writing, that's part of doing finishing." And then when we start talking about doing it, he says, "Oh no, nobody does that." So the guy's he's lying from the word, from the get-go, and everything, he contradicts himself. So here are the cracks, and these are bare. These are bare. It was a bad job, or else it's water damage. They've separated, and in the meantime, so all that needs to be done there is wood putty put in, and just as filler, so they're not dust catchers. I mean, it's no hazardous situation. It's just a matter of doing it right so you don't have dust, and also so that it doesn't rise up maybe and you trip over it.
Okay,
So a week ago, the 4th, which is when this job should have been completely done, I mean, it's even less than a third done before I came off the job site yesterday. A week ago Friday, a week ago today, he started on this window because it was expressed to him that this was a concern. We needed to get this done because the tenant moving in was concerned about the ugliness of what had existed, which was corkboard, which bulged out. There was a filler kind of caulk all over the window, the old window, and I mean, it was just real ugly and a real poor, sloppy job. So he did this, worked on this Friday and Saturday, and in essence, this is what more or less he's done. He had indicated at the beginning of the contract, before we let the contract, that he had a piece of paneling that matched to this that would go right in here. He doesn't. His paneling doesn't match after all, which is just another lie, another example of the lie after lie after lie that this guy has told. And also he left this mess. So, I mean, she can't move her furniture and she can't be cleaning this up because he has left this mess like this continuously, and for all intents and purposes, he's going to leave this like this forever. So that she would never be able to move into this place. And he would give no written assurance, no anything of when he was going to do it, and obviously his verbal assurances aren't worth anything, so that's why I demanded a written and he wouldn't give it. And on this window, you notice the way it was done, there's 4, this is the finished carpentry section of this window is very bad. Number 1 is put in permanently with nails rather than screws so that you can take it out, so you can take this window out again and clean it on both sides and clean the other window from the inside. And like all the other windows in the house, they all have that capability of being able to take them out. And of the 4 pieces of molding, which is cheap pine, I bought oak to replace this. 3 out of the 4 are chipped. And the 4th one, the one that's not chipped, it doesn't have a defect in it, it has hammer marks where he missed the nail, and the nail isn't in all the way. And then also, if you look, it's not symmetrical because this half-inch piece of edge molding here on these 2 sides is not duplicated on these 2 sides so that it would be symmetrical around the whole window, and that was not his intent. His intent was not to make it symmetrical. So obviously this is not a quality job. This is not a workmanlike job which is specified in writing as part of the contract that it should be. I mean, and you can see the gaping gaps, the gaps where the molding comes together, not only where it's chipped, but there are gaps that it doesn't even fit smooth. So you know, obviously that is just a very terrible job of carpentry. Any carpenter, that's not even a beginner's carpenter job. And I'm going to redo that. I mean, I can do a better job than that. I can do a much better job than that. To start now, this is one of the reasons we wanted to do this is because there was a hole in the carpeting that was real ugly, and we cut it out. So we wanted to just accomplish that problem, solve that problem by refinishing this section of the floor. And what was indicated both before we started and again to the tenant was that we would put a circular piece of edging, molding over the carpeting in here, and it would be a circular pattern. Well, I knew that wasn't going to be done. I knew we had settled on square, but he again told the tenant different from what he was going to actually do, and this was just a few days ago. So it's just obvious that the guy is a congenital liar and will tell anybody anything and then do what he wants to do. And even he was even contradicting the written terms of the contract in that the contract specified that the 3/4 round molding in all the rooms would be cut by him, but would be painted and installed by me. And he refused to do that. When my mother asked him to do that so she could paint it, he refused to do it, saying he was going to do it his way. And that's in contradiction to the written contract. So there is no 3/4 round molding anywhere around here that we could be working on and getting that done for the rest of the house. So it's fairly obvious that this guy was ripping us off.
Okay, it's
the caulk that's on there. That's the edge. This is the old window that was in. You can see this window is not much different from the windows that were replaced. So in other words, his intent has been to defraud us from the beginning, selling us a job that we're going to put a new window in and out there to replace this ugly old one. And he's putting in the same kind of window, a used old window that's not been reconditioned even. And then he's going to put a finish job on it that's just as ugly as the old glue, this caulk or whatever it was that was all over the old. It was all over the molding, even up and down. The old cork type mold paneling that was up here was just covered with this ugly caulk, opaque or clear, whatever, all the way up and down. Okay, these are the tools that he left. Now, they weren't left down here. I moved them. These were all over the house. I mean, he had more or less taken over my house for a lousy $1,000 contract and wouldn't give me a time when he was going to leave so that I could have my house back so I could do my work without stumbling all over his stuff constantly for this never-ending contract. And so I moved him down here, but this is it. These are the tools over here, and this is the materials. Now, I assume that the materials, since he's got $750 in advance out of this $1,050 contract, these belong to me, and those are, of course, his, which I'll give him back whenever he comes over. I guess, let's see. And most of these materials I don't need anyway. Okay, as part of this contract, he was supposed to put in a exhaust hood in the kitchen that was vented through the chimney out and under a cabinet that was to be like the cabinets, a 12-inch high, which would make it symmetrical like the cabinets in the kitchen, because the kitchen is real nice. And he didn't. He got a 24-inch cabinet, which we sent back because it wasn't like the other kitchen cabinets. And he got a recycling air exhaust instead of a vented one that would go through the wall. This one you just put up. I mean, I could put this thing up. I don't need a contractor to do this. And then this is the door that he got, which is what we agreed on. And I have no problems about this door, although I no longer have any faith that he would be able to put this door in and make it look decent when it was done. Because based upon the job he did on that window, I'm pretty sure he doesn't know how to put that door in.
Okay, it's on.
But, okay, so this is where the exhaust hood would go. Now, the way he had it, the exhaust hood was going to be down here, which you'd be bumping, well, it would be sticking out here. You'd be bumping your head into it. You couldn't see what you were cooking, and and the range would be bumping into it. So that was one of the reasons we sent the cabinet back. It was supposed to have been a 12-inch cabinet that would come up here, and it would be built out. Well, he wasn't planning on doing that at all. He wasn't planning on building this out. He didn't intend to have any type of a cabinet that had the handles like this or anything like these, except that it was wood, phony wood, and then he wasn't going to vent this thing. So he was contradicting the contract right from the beginning, because he bought that stuff before he even started the contract. So he had no intent to fulfill the written agreement on this contract right from the beginning, which I think is fraud. This is a nice kitchen. I like this.
What? Oh, I'm gonna take movies. I'll see you. What? Oh, I'm gonna take movies. I'll see you guys later. I gotta go take movies, okay?
Where?
I gotta take pictures of my house.
Where? Right here?
Right here.
Where are we going to take pictures of your house? Where? Got me a belt. Mom.
There's a picture of the new stainless steel insert. Cost $1,800.
There? Where?
Hey, you guys stay out in the alley.
No way.
Yeah, you guys are getting in trouble. I'm gonna... Watch out for the cars. You're not doing anything?
Here, okay. You got it. Okay. I'm not gonna make you laugh. Green garden.
Bars in town, 3 in one little section and then a mile down. Oh, jeez, there was a popular name back then, the Green something or other, whatever. But anyway.
Put your feet right there.
The green door.
Down into your feet.
That's beer was.
Yeah, that was long after. This was
I want to know more.
Now, take care of your feet. Okay.
That is what?
Did you see behind your feet?
She was the Irish baby. She was the Irish
Oh,
baby.
God.
Bad. I've got it on tape.
The only big name I ever saw.
You know what? They have different versions. That's the version I originally saw.
We went to see that Colleen said they was on the set. Put the green door on here. They went to see Deep Throat and we know that was a double feature we saw. Deep Throat.
I'm good.
Those are, well, for the time, I mean, for that time in 72, 73 when that came out, that was I mean, it was
Well,
big social
right, exactly. It set the standard.
And it was funny because of the way they did it, because normally the porno movies were just porno movies, right? Like I said, you didn't have dialogue or anything, right? And so this was.
What I gotta do is I gotta get a video disc.
And now you look at it, it's kind of bad.
So I can borrow your video disc.
The Teenage Fantasy, I saw Teenage Fantasies in the same time in San Francisco.
Yeah,
It was
like 100.
We have a 3-hour layover on the bus, and so I walked up and down Market Street, and I got bored, and I finally had to walk in.
Are you still buddy? CD players work out really well.
And because Tom had already told you about it, they had already seen it right down here at the park. And so we had talked about, we were sitting at the table and we were talking about it. And so I said, yeah, let's see what's CD. And so I saw that and the other one, and I saw Deep Throat twice.
I keep changing them because of five,
Had
put the
3
five
hours.
in there.
The first time I watched it, it was
And I just
like
keep playing
11 o'clock in the morning or something like that.
Right.
And I was the only one
And
that
you turn it off
laughed.
for another week.
Nobody else laughed, right? Every time that you should laugh, I laughed, right? Because it was funny. And then the next time, the second time I watched it, then there was a more normal crowd. The early time was just these bums that didn't have a place to sleep, right? They're in there, and that's where they're sleeping, right? Whatever. And flopping.
Look around at the deals.
Yeah, well.
And so the next afternoon,
But that
which was
much
1
money,
o'clock
right.
then, right? Because it was
You know,
an hour each.
they go
Then
they
everybody else
go
laughed, right, at the same race as I laughed the first time, right? And that
Around here,
was stuck in my mind, that sort
But
of.
if they got a sailor on it, talk to your dad and
what
snap whatever.
what was going on.
Is that where you bought yours out there?
In there, they were so shaded. It wouldn't have made any difference what was up on the screen. It wouldn't make any difference to them at all. They were just in there having a place to sit and warm, right? Although this was warm.
Did you get the Pioneer?
Did you ever see the story of all?
Well, Sony's supposed to be coming,
I
right?
want ice cream with it.
Story Ball was the best one I've ever seen.
They get them, your dad is supposed to have one way on oil.
He's talking about.
They won't get them here. They won't get them here. They get them all out there because they're not that big in the market.
Get a copy of it.
But talk to your dad. Talk to your dad.
Oh,
That's what you got here.
Clockwork Orange?
Clockwork, yes, we saw some of that.
Clockwork Orange.
Did you see that one?
That drove me crazy.
Oh, it's so funny.
Clockwork
You
Orange
have to
is
go see it.
X-rated. There's so much violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I didn't know.
Clockwork Orange, the book is a lot better. I read that book when I first went to college.
The book, right. Well, that in George Orwell's 1984 were two amazing books in the way they foresaw the future. And that's why I should get the book, Clockwork Orange, to read it. I've got this class now. It's really great. It's forecast. Well, it's management and it's environment. It's essentially a forecasting class. And we're learning how to, think about the future and make decisions regarding the future, and and reducing uncertainty, or how much uncertainty are you willing to underwrite, but look at the total picture rather than just the firm and its profits. You have to look at society as a whole when making a decision, depending upon what kind of firm you are and what kind of business you're in.
Right.
You have to look at a broader picture rather than just your own little company. And like right now we're studying the environmentalist movement back in well, actually, back in 1952, we had our first case was Con Ed, when they wanted to build an additional site on Storm King Mountain. It was called in upstate. Well, actually, it's not upstate New York. It's about what? It was yeah, but they were never able to build it. And they finally got out of the courts about 6 years ago. Storm King Mountain, and it was to supplement. Yeah, it was a storage facility for peak or emergency.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd run your pumps pumping water out of the Hudson up into this reservoir.
Right.
At night when you don't need the power.
Exactly.
And then during the day when you need the power.
Right.
It's a turbine pump. You
right.
Run it, you let it fall down from the reservoir.
Exactly. But the thing is, the environmentalists got in from day one on that, and they said the Hudson. They formed the Hudson River Valley Committee, or conference, Hudson River Valley Conference, and they got in there, and Con Ed didn't acknowledge them, and that was their biggest mistake. They didn't go and start bargaining with them right away, because they could have cut a deal with them probably up front, but they didn't. They ignored them, and the HRVC was composed of some very wealthy people who knew how to play the legal channels, and once they tied it up in the courts, that was it. And Con Ed never recovered from it.
That's a typical management attitude, right?
But like Commonwealth Edison down in Chicago now, they saw this happening, and they wanted to build a nuclear facility at Zion, right? But the women's League of Women's Voters were very influential down there, and they were going to come out and protest it. But Commonwealth saw what happened to Consolidated, and they got in and they said, "Here, we're gonna take you up there. We're gonna fund some of your programs." And they played with them, and as a result, they were able to. They just barely overcame They just barely got it up. Yeah, they just barely overcame the opposition to build, design, and plan. But they did it by working. You know, they realized what the environment was, what it was happening in the environment, and they worked with it rather than try to steamroll over.
Swan King was never built.
Never. No, it never was.
I read about it. It's probably been 12, 13 years since I even read about it. I just assumed they eventually got it built.
No, it was approved by the let's see, FPP. Power
FPC? Power Commission?
No, it wasn't the
which is now a different agency.
Yeah, it was approved by the FPC, but it was overturned in the federal court because they said that the FPC had neglected to look at the cost to society, and so
one of the Michigan utilities put in a pump storage plant.
What?
In town of War. Consumers Power is right in it.
Don't. Go get the other one. Don't do it with this one.
Well, it all depends where you're going to put it. Apparently, they were having trouble.
Don't let me go on you.
Put the power pole across the countryside, you know, 30 miles away from the city, and it was going to disrupt that vision, and they were worried about it. And it was right. It was 2 years after the spring. The only problem is, you know, that's when the environmentalist movement started.
This is not fun.
I've got to do a forecasting paper in there, and try to fix the topic now. We got this professor who's been teaching there. He's a history PhD from the University of Chicago. And like one of the courses to take. Really
you still have one.
Your problem getting
Look at all that stuff on me.
you got a big one, so it's a hard point to do. So it's a matter of knowing how many points you've been to get a course. And I missed one of the courses, but I just barely got it. I was on a third of the way when I was going to get into the course after the first week of class.
Okay,
But it's more or less knowing which courses are and the thing you try to do is try to balance your so you're not taking 4 private courses.
Why do you want people to sit on you?
The most free private course is one that you still want to take, but you want to stagger your schedule so it all works out. And some courses aren't taught every quarter either. So it's a matter of planning. Some people don't plan very well, but I got everything I wanted so far.
You gotta use your home computer to figure out how to take the course. Or what course to take.
You all right there, man?
That's your schedule.
That would be one of my top choices.
Good. No.
Okay, now let me. No, I love this.
I'm drinking beer here. I start out with coffee early in the morning.
No.
I haven't drank one for dinner in the past couple of years. I've drank
I think.
That's why I started. Drink coffee, like in the morning at work.
Nikki, no. This is very expensive.
By the afternoon, I just put it off.
Oh, I hate that part. Oh, fine. You're again right there. You wait, let me do something. Stay there. Don't say anything.
There's so much more information. But the problem is taking that information. There was this article in the Wall Street Journal the other day. We've only used 10%
No,
of all the data we've ever had transmitted from those satellites, and all the moon excursions and all the, you know, all the things, we've only been able to utilize 10% overall. And the other 90%, which could be valuable data, is there are 87,000 magnetic tapes sitting in the, you know the movie, Indiana Jones. No, Indiana Jones, the one where, the first one. Yeah, the warehouse. There are tapes that was a real warehouse. I mean, that wasn't the real one, but that really was what happened. And there are, all those tapes are sitting in there, and they'll never be used. And the scientists are just, it's mixed. And but the thing is, we're spending more and more money to develop complex systems to transmit more and more data back. But we can only utilize, you know, a certain percentage of that data. So we're spending all this money, and what we should be doing is spending the money on figuring out how to utilize the data. And there's no way we can figure it out.
So we go on the far side. Okay. Wait, let me do something. No, let's take a big one. Okay.
Brain is much faster. In other words, our inner workings are so much faster.
Can you go around, you little one?
Interface.
Little, Nicky.
That's what they call one sport.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's it. But I was reading that and I just thought,
You shall find.
well, it's typically.
No, first you have to hardly push me out. First you have to land on your butt on the ground. Then you can like push it. No, you can't. Now, fine.
You can't do anything.
Now, take away the cushion. That's how it felt to me. Okay.
And what happens is only 10% of them are probably at work. 90% fall off in their face, 5% of the rest is 90% fall off in their face.
I'll be on the end. I fell down already, so I don't have to cry.
It's just all insane.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Did you know, I read this in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, I never knew this. Did you know that, Kennedy, not Jack, but Robert Kennedy investigated Martin Luther King, and the FBI has a whole file on him that after his death was sealed for 50 years and cannot be opened for another 39, and that, you didn't know that? It was in the Wall Street yesterday, and, well, they were, yeah, well, and he had the communist ties and that, but regardless of that, there's this file that they're waiting, you know, the implication of the article was, there's 30-something in there, there's probably a lot of stuff in there.
They're waiting for Florida to croak.
But no, they got it.
For her to croak, as soon as she croaks, he's a nut.
I don't know.
Martin Luther King, he's a nobody.
Okay.
The only thing that's keeping him going is Florida King. She's the only thing that's keeping him going.
No, I think the whole
when she
the
croaks,
blacks
the whole share back.
He
was not nailed to the cross. All he was shot. Kennedy was shot. Both Kennedys were shot. Lincoln was shot. How many more other people were shot?
Yeah, but that's a significant movement in time. I mean, Kennedy didn't do anything. Martin Luther King Martin Luther King brought about a great revolution for the black people. Jack Kennedy and Robert Kennedy didn't do that.
The difference is not what you think about Martin Luther King. 100 years from now, the guy's a nobody.
Oh yeah, that's probably, that may be true. We're not sure.
Because he was an agitator. But he gets more, I mean, he gets $1 million worth of publicity every
But
week.
he's sure.
Right? For $1 million, the General Motors would do the same thing?
No. You know he would.
Not to show how dumb he is.
No, because he's not,
he wouldn't do it that way.
That's right.
Sure,
That's right, but I'm talking about the way he's doing it. So what he's discrediting the black
My
movement.
point is that's the only way he can do it. He's not going to get the
Well,
publicity.
fine, but no, that's not true. That's not true at all. If he were more creative.
If he were the president of General Motors, he could